What is a pattern? A pattern is when you can see things that are similar or that change in an expected manner, etc. In coding, we have two main patterns. They are composition and classification. Composition represents ands. Classification represents ors. So in composition, as things are composed, you have this and that and that. Classification allows you to break that up and say, well, you've got this set of things, or you've got this set of things, or you've got that set of things. When we break things up like that and recognize a pattern, that allows us to simplify. It allows us to abstract the pattern and describe it in a more general sense. And that abstraction is very important in our coding. It helps simplify. Function is abstraction. We are taking the things that we were doing a dozen times and doing it only once. We're abstracting the things in common, putting them in one place, calling it a function, and then we can call that whenever we want. Okay, so those are some words that we use in coding: abstraction, and composition, classification, and they all relate to patterns. What I'd like to do now is take you through the creativity framework. The creativity framework is based on the philosophy of nodism, which we'll do another what is about that. But let's take a look at the creativity framework and how it leads us to explain composition and classification. All right, so creativityframework.com. We have a pattern here that is two boxes within a box. And this pattern is telling us something. It's telling us, hey, that we've got our creativity framework around the outside, and we've got two parts to it, the context and the content. Now, the context will tell us about the framework, and the content will tell us how to actually use it to create content. So we've got one thing here as well. You see this one box? It stems from here. One stem breaks into two. So we have a tree-like structure here, and it's showing the same information. It's showing one thing breaking into two, and this is the nested boxes are showing one thing breaking into two, divided into two. So that's called an isomorphism, or it's morphing. This version morphs into this version, and vice versa. Iso meaning the same. So you can tell your mother, oh, I'm looking at the isomorphisms of hierarchy. So context is the medium in which we create content. And that's kind of cool. We'll see what that means. A medium just sits between hot, cold, and medium. A spiritual medium sits between the living and the dead. Paint and clay, they're an artist's medium, etc. So here we have inventor Dan Zen with a node globe. Not sure if you can see that. This is a radial hierarchy. And there's Mr. Marshall McLuhan going, oh, okay, that's what a medium is. So a hierarchy or a tree is the basic form of organization. A main strength of the framework is in the mapping of hierarchies. Mapping is another word for isomorphism, by the way. It's a mapping of hierarchies. Before we show mapping, let's take a look at the hierarchy and its terminology. So here we have node 0 with everything in it. And of that, we've divided up everything into animals and plants. We can do that because we notice that there are patterns in animals, things that are the same, such as fur and legs and being alive and that kind of stuff. Well, plants, I guess, are also alive. They might have fur. They don't really have legs, they have roots. Anyway, we look at that animals have certain things in common, and then we can break it down even further, that cats it's a subclass. This is classification. Cats have things in common with each other, and dogs have things in common with each other. And so that's the traditional classification structure: plants, trees, bushes, and flowers. Trees are big, bushes are medium, flowers have, whatever it is that causes them to be classified. It's got a stamen, whatever that thing is. Okay, so that's classification. Now, just some terminology here. This is called a node. Hello, there's another node. The context is what's up above. So context, to a certain degree, is the past. Where does it sit within everything? And here, the content is what's down below. The content of animals is cats and dogs. The context of trees, bushes, and flowers is plants, in this case. Now, we also argue a bit later on in the creativity framework about the flexibility, or we point out the flexibility of a framework, and that this could change at any time, changing context, for instance. Now, in coding, we'll recognize some of these words. As we go up, we're more general, and as we go down, we're more specific. So this node here has children, so child nodes. And up above are its parents. Now that would be in composition. So when we put a button on the stage, the button is the stage is the parent of the button. And if we put something in the button, like the button has in it a label inside the button, then that label is a child of the button. That's composition. Classification on the right-hand side is represented by slightly different words, things like a subclass and a superclass. So the more specific we go, those are subclasses of superclasses. And then there's nice words that come along with this. As we go up, we join things together. As we go down, we split things apart. And as we split things apart, we're analyzing, or we're getting aspects of something. As we go up and we join things together, as we go up and join together, that's synthesis. That's like a synthesizer joins musical patterns, or what are they called? Like waves together. And then as we go up, we gain a perspective. Organization. When we organize or group, nest, categorize, classify, we split and join things, and this process is represented by a hierarchy. And now we're going to map a hierarchy across many vital organizational systems. So first we start off with this vital one of our dresser drawers. There we are, so we can keep our socks away from our underwear. All right, now here we have an outer container, box, that holds two inner boxes, or sections. And then the top section here is divided into two, and the bottom section is divided into three. So we've got one big thing holding two things, and those hold two things and three things. If we erase the side lines here and just keep the top and bottom lines, and we put little tags around these, angle brackets around, this is the format of XML or HTML. In other words, XML is just a way to store organized data. If we just keep the top line and keep the indenting, see how we have one thing that holds two things. The first thing of those holds two things, and the next one holds three things. So same information. And that looks like, if we put bullets on that, that would be, say, a table of contents for a project that we worked on in grade 1. We've been organizing for quite some time. If we draw little lines down these, we get a familiar directory structure that are files and folders on our computer organized in. If we turn this around, rotate it, and we erase the top and bottom lines but keep the little corners, we get nested arrays. So that's multi-dimensional arrays. It's also a way that we can store this data. And I used to joke at parties, you know, why do we need XML? We've got multi-dimensional arrays. Yeah. Is that you too? Okay. Now if we draw a line from the center of the outside box to the center of the inside boxes, center of the outside over to the center of the inside, and then draw a line from the center of the inside down to its innermost 2, and over on this side to its innermost 3, you get this exact mapping of a traditional hierarchy diagram, which we often use to map out our classes in object-oriented programming, etc. If we put letters down on the leaf nodes, on the end nodes there, A, B, C, D, E, and we use the delimiters, they're delimiters that split on the different levels, we get this, and that is information. It's information. Marching along. Chop, chop, chop. Information. Another word for it is code. Oh, and that's what we're doing. We're coding serialized data, or language even. Language. If we flip the hierarchy upside down, we get a nice organic looking tree. We can make curves, that's the same, but more organic and friendly looking. We keep the delimiters there. Now we look up the trunk of our tree. So this is a cross section looking up the trunk, and we see it break into two branches. 1, 2 branches, and then into 2 branches again. 1, 2, and this one over into 3. And that's just an organic circular version of this. And doesn't it look like cells or organs? We are organizing. And if we have our delimiters, that's all we need to make this pattern. A carat, tilde, carat, carat, and I can make the pattern of these cells. And code that makes cells is DNA. Here's a radial hierarchy, where we've got those 2 things coming out of the one thing, and then 2 things, and then 3 things. And that's what our brain looks like, 3D. And I believe that the one thing that the radial hierarchy is coming from, the one thing is our consciousness. So at any time there is one place that the hierarchy is starting from, our consciousness moves around very quickly in the brain as we map things, like we parse XML and stuff like that. Right on. So this all heads towards the philosophy of nodism. Now, there's an exercise. It's a multi-user exercise. Now, where does now go? Oh yeah, the node is now. The node is now. Right? And more general was up here, wasn't it? Yes. And more specific was down below here. And this is multi-user, so you can do this with a workshop or your friends, etc. It's kind of fun, huh? See if you can recreate that. And here we're seeing if we can recreate. There's one thing that holds 2 things, each of them holding 2 things. So does that one, but not that one. That's 3 things. That's 3 things. That's just 2 little things like that. Oh, and like this one. So you can map these out and try and match all of these things together. One thing that holds 3 things is up there. There's 2 things. Is that? No, that's this little one up here. There's one thing that holds 2 things. Yeah, this is it. That matches, etc. So you try and match it all. And when you finish, it gives you a little reward. Here's where we wanted to get to in the creativity framework. Composition. So here's a hierarchy. Let's just read this. Meaning. The structure of a hierarchy is easy, but it's tricky to divide up meaning, semantics. In part, this is because there are 2 ways, ands and ors, plus a combination of ands and ors. So when we have ands, it's composition. A book is composed of a cover and pages. Pages are composed of numbers, titles, and paragraphs. The shelf is composed of books and vases. That's what's on the shelf. Books are composed of a cover. Oh, we did that one already. Okay, so that's ands, whereas we go across, it's ands. But we can also read a hierarchy or create a hierarchy as ors going across. So this is classification, types of things. Of the types of publications, we have books and magazines. Those are different things. And then we also have sports and romance and sci-fi types of books. And of types of sports, there's hockey, soccer, tennis. So we either play hockey or soccer or tennis. We don't do all of them. But we don't say that pages are made up of numbers or titles or paragraphs. Okay, now it's kind of funny. We can use ands on this side. And that's, I believe, because classification is not real. Composition is real. Life is real. Things are composed, and that's that. You've got things inside of things inside of things. Classification is an overlay that we're, overlaying. So we can actually say sports are made up of hockey and soccer and tennis. That composes or comprise. That's what comprises sports. Okay, and that's composition in a sense. But like I said, it doesn't quite work the other way around. We can also mix up the hierarchies, and I was doing that for ages. You know, in philosophy, I've got sketchbooks filled with these patterns, and I'm just going blah, and didn't realize what I was doing, that I'm doing both composition and classification in the same hierarchy. And if you think about it, this is what's going on in our code. As we're making our lines of code inside, say, a block of code, that is composition. We're composing, blomp, blomp, blomp. Now, some of the things we're composing with might be classes or objects made from classes. So we classify, that means we collect things, and then we compose with them, plonk, plonk, plonk. And actually these things, the classifications themselves, if you look inside them, are just a bunch of composition. So the two main patterns that we use in coding are composition and classification. I'm going to show you in another what is a couple more specific types of patterns, that being a module pattern and model view controller pattern, that are traditionally thought of as design patterns. Not too many people, if you talk to them in coding, say, hey, you know, what design patterns are you using? They're not going to answer composition and classification. It's so basic that they may not realize that it's there. However, I'm telling you, it is very important, interesting to do, and if I were you, I would come into this creativity framework and take a look here. This is the flexibility of a framework. It's just, you know, it's just wonderful. There's me. You might think, oh, I don't want to be like in a classified, or I don't want to be put in a hierarchy. No, no. But here's me. I'm composed at the moment in my workshop. But I can move with time. I can move to the bedroom. So time allows you to change, and things come with me. But time allows you to be composed in different places. Classification, this is a lovely one. I love this. We have of everything, there are males. Of males, there's Dan. There I am. Of everything, there's inventors. And there I am. I'm an inventor. But there's also inventors that are male. And hey, there I am there too. And there's males who are in Hamilton. And there I am as well. So look, I'm in all these places. That's not too bad. Not only that, I am classified directly as a member of the universe, of node 0. Recognize that? Isn't that wonderful? So there I am, classified directly under node 0. And really, it is a relativity thing. Everything could be classified under me, the distance from me. It's relativity. So these thoughts and more go into nodism, come from nodism. So please come on by. There's all sorts of fun things that we can do here. There's more exercises on building. This is exactly what you need to do to be able to build your own custom classes. You have to know how to categorize things. You have to know that, for instance, pages, if we've got a bunch of pages in a book, the pages do not extend the book. Pages are not a type of book. Pages, the book is comprised. It contains all of those pages. So that's composition. It's not classification. So that's often, you got a party and there's these party people. You say, okay, the party people, they extend from the party. And then all of a sudden you're lost. Nothing seems to work. And that's because that's not true. A party people are not a type of party. So a party is a composition of party people. All right, so if you come in here and do these exercises, I guarantee you, you'll be much better off in your coding world. And indeed, in your creativity world. We didn't even get to the end. This is about planning that. This is the end of the context. Let's just move to the next one. Here's the content where we start looking at this classification structure as explaining things like outside the box, paradigm shift, lateral thinking, mental leaps. So it's actually with the techniques that you're using to code that you can use those same techniques to create. And that is just fantastic. It's like brilliant. So that's what this is doing. It helps you understand what that is. More exercises for you to try. And then we talk about how we can use this structure to actually create things. Bloop, 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 bloop. There it is. So how to break things apart. And we get into how I created, for instance, Hanging, which is this mobile app. We analyze, followed by synthesize. How I created Trippy, which is putting this in a shoebox. And that was pre-Google Cardboard. And that is, again, analysis and synthesis using our hierarchies. How I made Tilty, a mobile app that uses a device but is in the physical world. The fantastic opportunities in creation just from simple workings inside of hierarchies. So I am Dan Zen. Why don't we leave it there? There is a part in the Zim Learn area where we're going to talk about creativity, and that's in the 4th area there. So have a look, of course, at the various tutorials. Then there's the workshops, then there's the lessons, and then there's Beyond. And Beyond is, a lot about this kind of stuff, creativity. Ciao. Inventor Dan Zen here at zimjs.com. Have a great day.